Queen Elizabeth II's coffin travelled from the Palace of Holyrood House to St Giles Cathedral ahead of a service of Thanksgiving. The Queen's coffin procession and the period of lying in state have been closely guarded by snipers spotted throughout Edinburgh. Thousands of royal mourners queued overnight to get a glimpse of the Queen's coffin as it travelled down the Royal Mile. The Queen's coffin arrived in a hearse that travelled for 6 hours from the royal estate at Balmoral, Aberdeenshire, to the city on Sunday. The coffin arrived at the Palace of Holyrood House, then was transported to St Giles Cathedral. The procession, led by King Charles III, saw the Queen's 4 children accompany the coffin down Edinburgh's Royal Mile. Minute guns were fired from Edinburgh Castle as the King, the Duke of York, the Princess Royal and the Earl of Wessex walked alongside the hearse. A service of thanksgiving was held at the cathedral in honour of the late monarch. Queen Elizabeth's children then held a vigil around the coffin for 10 minutes, while Camilla, Queen Consort, and the Countess of Wessex watched on. The traditional vigil of the princes saw the 4 senior royals positioned at each side of the coffin in silent reflection. It was the first time a female royal family member had participated in the ritual. But as huge crowds gather in Edinburgh's streets, law enforcement officers can be spied looking down on the masses, poised and ready for any action needed. In the photographs, one police officer dons a baseball cap identifying him as part of the force, while stood next to a fellow officer holding binoculars to his face. Next to the 2 officers sits a firearm in position, ready to be used if necessary. In another photograph, a firearms officer can be seen peering through the scope of the weapon. The Queen's coffin will travel from Edinburgh to London later on Tuesday, after it has completed its 24 hours of lying in state. The cortege will leave St Giles at 5 p.m, heading for Edinburgh Airport. The Princess Royal will be the only one of the Queen's children to accompany the coffin on its flight. It is expected to arrive at RAF Northolt, West London at 6:55 p.m. Princess Anne will be joined by the Very Reverend Professor David Ferguson, Dean of the Chapel Royal in Scotland. Once the coffin touches down in the capital, the RAF Honour Guard will carry out a royal salute. It will then be taken to Buckingham Palace, to be placed in the bow room. On Wednesday, the coffin will travel to Westminster Hall, beginning the lying in state period. Members of the public will be allowed to see the coffin during this time, with the building open around the clock ahead of the funeral on Monday, September 19.